They paid $1 for a trailer in the desert. 3 hours later, they heard cries coming from the floorboards. What they found beneath shouldn't have been there at all. The Mojave Desert stretched endlessly in every direction, a landscape of sand, stone, and silence. Interstate 40 cut through it like a scar, and just off exit 47, hidden behind a stand of dying mesquite trees, sat Harlow's Salvage and Resale. It wasn't the kind of place you found on purpose. The hand-painted sign was barely visible from the highway, and the chain-link fence surrounding the property sagged in places where the desert had reclaimed its territory. Inside, rows of abandoned vehicles baked under the relentless sun, gutted pickup trucks, stripped motorcycles, campers with shattered windows, and trailers that looked like they'd survived apocalypses. Sienna Voss pulled her dusty Tacoma into the gravel lot, her girlfriend Riley Chen riding shotgun. They'd been driving for 6 hours straight from San Francisco, following a lead on cheap travel trailers. Their plan was simple: buy something affordable, fix it up over the next 2 months, and spend a year traveling the back roads of America. Sienna was a documentary filmmaker, Riley a wildlife biologist on sabbatical. They'd saved every penny for this. "This place looks like a graveyard," Riley said, stepping out of the truck and shielding her eyes from the midday glare. "Perfect," Sienna replied with a grin. "Graveyards have the best deals." A man emerged from a corrugated metal shed that served as an office. He was in his late 60s, skin like leather, wearing grease-stained coveralls and a baseball cap with no logo. His name tag read Harlow. "Help you folks," he called out, wiping his hands on a rag that looked like it had never been clean. "We're looking for a travel trailer," Sienna said. "Something under $1,000. Doesn't have to be pretty, just functional." Harlow scratched his jaw, squinting at the rows of vehicles behind him. "Under $1,000, huh? Slim pickings at that price." He paused, then gestured toward the far back corner of the lot. "Got one Airstream back there. Been sitting for near about 10 years. Previous owner dropped it off, said he'd be back for it. Never showed. Title's clean, though. I can let it go for, hell, give me $1 and haul it out of here. It's taking up space." Riley blinked. $1? What's wrong with it?" "Nothing I know of," Harlow said. "Just old. Needs cleaning. Maybe some mechanical love. But the frame's solid, no leaks far as I can tell. Just been sitting too long." Sienna looked at Riley. A vintage Airstream for $1? Even if it needed serious work, that was the deal of a lifetime. "Show us," Sienna said. They followed Harlow through the maze of rusted metal and sun-bleached fiberglass. The heat shimmered off the hoods of abandoned cars. Flies buzzed lazily around piles of tires. The air smelled like baked rubber and creosote. Finally, they reached the back of the lot. And there it was. The Airstream sat partially buried in drifted sand, its iconic silver shell dulled by a decade of desert abuse. But even through the grime, Sienna could see its potential. The body was intact. The windows weren't broken. The hitch looked solid. "It's beautiful," Riley whispered. Harlow shrugged. "Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, I guess. Want to look inside?" He produced a key ring heavy with dozens of keys, fumbled through them, and eventually found the right one. The door creaked open, releasing a wave of stale, superheated air that smelled like dust and something vaguely chemical. Sienna climbed in first. The interior was surprisingly intact: vintage cabinetry, a small kitchenette with a 2-burner stove, a fold-down dining table, and a narrow sleeping area in the back. Everything was coated in a thick layer of dust, but structurally, it was all there. "This is amazing," Sienna said, running her hand along the countertop. "I can't believe someone just abandoned it." "People abandon all kinds of things," Harlow said from the doorway. "Life gets complicated. They move on." Riley opened the cabinets one by one. Empty. She checked the tiny bathroom. Dry. The sleeping area had a thin, stained mattress that would definitely need to be replaced, but the bed frame was solid. "We'll take it," Sienna said. Harlow chuckled. "You sure?" Haven't even turned on the water or checked the electrical. For $1? I'm sure. 20 minutes later, they'd signed a handwritten bill of sale on a grease-stained piece of notebook paper, handed over a single dollar bill, and hitched the Airstream to Sienna's truck. Harlow helped them check the trailer lights. Surprisingly, most of them still worked. Good luck with her, Harlow said, waving as they drove off. Hope she treats you right. As they pulled onto the highway, Riley looked back at the trailer bouncing slightly on the hitch. I can't believe we just bought a trailer for $1. Sienna grinned. Best investment we've ever made. Neither of them noticed the black sedan parked along the access road, watching them leave. They drove east for another hour, following dusty back roads until they reached their rental, a small adobe cabin outside the town of Barstow. It was remote, cheap, and exactly what they needed. No neighbors, no distractions, just open desert and enough space to work on the Airstream. They parked the trailer beside the cabin as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of burnt orange and deep purple. The temperature dropped fast once the sun disappeared, the desert cold creeping in like a ghost. Let's at least sweep it out tonight, Riley said, pulling a broom from the cabin. I want to sleep knowing what we're working with tomorrow. They propped open all the windows and doors, letting the stale air escape. Sienna swept while Riley wiped down surfaces with disinfectant wipes. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from years of being together. It was Riley who first noticed the floorboard. She was kneeling near the back sleeping area, scrubbing at a stubborn stain on the wall, when her knee pressed against a section of floor that shifted slightly. She frowned. Sienna, come here. Sienna walked over, still holding the broom. What? Riley pressed her hand against the floorboard. It moved, not much, but enough to notice. This doesn't feel right. It's loose. Sienna knelt down beside her and tested the board herself. Definitely loose. And beneath it, there was a hollow sound, like there was space underneath. Maybe it's just water damage or rot, Sienna said, but her voice lacked conviction. Riley grabbed a flathead screwdriver from their toolkit and wedged it into the gap. The board came up easily, revealing a dark space beneath. And then they heard it. A sound. Faint. Muffled. A cry. Both women froze. Did you hear that? Riley whispered. Sienna's pulse quickened. Yeah. They pulled up another board. Then another. The hidden compartment was deep, at least 3 feet, and lined with sheet metal. And inside, wrapped in filthy blankets, eyes wide with terror, was a child. A girl. Maybe 8 years old. Dark hair matted with sweat and dirt. Her clothes torn. Her wrists marked with angry red lines, like she'd been tied up for hours, or days. Riley gasped and immediately reached down. Oh God. Sweetie, it's okay. We're not going to hurt you. The girl didn't speak. She just stared, trembling violently. Sienna carefully lifted her out. She was so light it made Sienna's chest tighten with anger. The girl couldn't weigh more than 50 pounds. Once out, she clutched Sienna's shirt with tiny, dirt-caked fingers and buried her face against her shoulder. It's okay, Sienna whispered. You're safe now. I promise. Riley was already pulling out her phone. I'm calling 911. Wait, Sienna said, her voice shaking. She was looking back into the compartment. There was something else down there. A black nylon backpack. She reached in and pulled it out. The zipper was stuck, crusted with sand. She forced it open. Inside were documents. Dozens of them. Passports, children's passports, from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. All kids between 6 and 10 years old. None of them matched the girl they just pulled out. There were also handwritten logs. Names, dates, locations. Pickup points and drop-off points. A ledger of human cargo. And at the bottom of the bag was a map. A detailed map of the southwestern United States, marked with red circles and lines connecting them like veins. Cities, highways, safe houses. And in the corner, stamped in faded red ink, was a symbol, a triangle with a coiled serpent inside. Sienna's hands shook as she unfolded the map fully. Riley, this trailer wasn't abandoned. Riley looked up from the girl, her face pale. What do you mean? This was being used. For trafficking. This is a smuggling route. The word hit like a hammer. The girl whimpered and pointed toward the window with a shaking hand. Both women turned. Outside, cutting through the darkness, were headlights. 2 sets. Moving fast across the desert, no roads, just open land. Heading straight toward them. Sienna's blood turned to ice. Nobody knows we're here. Riley's voice was barely a whisper. Except Harlow. The headlights were getting closer. Fast. Sienna grabbed the girl and the backpack. Inside the cabin. Now. They ran. The threat arrives, 8 to 10 o'clock. They locked the cabin door and killed the lights. Sienna pulled the girl into the bathroom, the only room without windows, and crouched beside her. Riley grabbed a kitchen knife, the only weapon they had, and positioned herself near the front window, peering through a crack in the blinds. The 2 vehicles rolled to a stop just outside the airstream. Black SUVs, windows tinted, no plates visible in the darkness. 4 men stepped out. They moved with precision, no wasted motion. Professional. One of them, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black jacket, walked directly to the airstream and yanked the door open. He disappeared inside. The other 3 fanned out, checking the perimeter, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Riley's grip tightened on the knife. They know someone was in there. The man emerged from the trailer holding something in his hand, a piece of torn fabric from the hidden compartment. He said something in Spanish to the others. Riley didn't speak Spanish, but the tone was clear, someone had found the girl. He pulled out a phone and made a call. His voice was low, clipped, urgent. Riley strained to hear. Sí, comprometido, alguien la sacó, necesitamos limpieza. He hung up. Then he turned toward the cabin. For a moment, everything was still. Then he started walking toward them. Riley's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked back toward the bathroom where Sienna was holding the girl. The man was 10 feet from the door when another set of headlights appeared on the horizon. A single truck, moving fast, kicking up a cloud of dust. The 4 men turned, hands moving to their waistbands. The truck skidded to a stop, and a woman stepped out. She was tall, mid-40s, with short-cropped gray hair and a leather jacket. A badge glinted on her belt. Federal agent, she shouted, her voice cutting through the night. Hands where I can see them. Now. 2 more vehicles appeared behind her, unmarked sedans. Agents poured out, weapons drawn, flashlights blazing. The 4 men froze. For a heartbeat, it looked like they might run. Then, slowly, they raised their hands. Inside the cabin, Riley exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. But as she looked toward the bathroom, where Sienna cradled the terrified girl, she knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The federal agent approached the cabin slowly, her hand resting on the grip of her sidearm but not drawing it. Behind her, other agents were already handcuffing the 4 men, reading them their rights in both English and Spanish. Red and blue lights from the unmarked vehicles strobed across the desert, turning the night into a surreal tableau of shadows and color. Riley opened the door cautiously. The agent stopped a few feet away and held up her credentials, a worn leather case with a badge and ID card. Special Agent Torres, Homeland Security Investigations. Are you the ones who purchased the Airstream from Harlow Salvage? Riley nodded, her voice shaky. Yes. A few hours ago. We found a girl inside. Hidden. Under the floorboards. Torres's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes, recognition, maybe concern. Is she hurt? Does she need medical attention? I don't know, Riley said. She hasn't spoken. She's terrified. I need to see her. Riley hesitated, then stepped aside. Torres entered the cabin, moving carefully, non-threateningly. Sienna emerged from the bathroom, still holding the girl wrapped in a blanket. The child's face was buried against Sienna's shoulder, her small body rigid with fear. Torres knelt down a few feet away, keeping her distance. She spoke softly, in Spanish first, then English. "Hi, sweetheart. My name is Valentina. I'm here to help you. You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you anymore." The girl lifted her head slightly, just enough to peek at Torres with one eye. She didn't speak, but she didn't hide again either. Torres looked up at Sienna. "How long has she been with you?" "Maybe 30 minutes. We found her right before those men showed up." "Did you find anything else? Documents? Papers? Anything that might tell us who she is or where she came from?" Sienna hesitated, then reached for the black backpack sitting on the floor beside the couch. She handed it to Torres without a word. Torres opened it, her expression darkening as she sifted through the contents. The passports. The logs. The map. When she saw the symbol, the triangle with the coiled serpent, her jaw tightened. "You know what this is," Sienna said. It wasn't a question. Torres stood, still holding the backpack. "This symbol belongs to an organization we've been tracking for 3 years. They call themselves La Vibora, the Viper. They run one of the largest human trafficking networks in the Southwest. Children mostly. They move them across the border, transport them through the desert using hidden compartments in vehicles, trailers, trucks. Then they sell them." Riley felt sick. "Sell them? To who?" "Labor rings. Illegal adoption networks. Worse." Torres's voice was hard, controlled. "We've been trying to infiltrate them for years, but they're careful. Compartmentalized. Nobody knows more than their piece of the operation. This," she held up the backpack, "this is the first solid evidence we've had linking routes, locations, and operators. You just handed us the key to dismantling the entire network." Sienna looked down at the girl in her arms. "What about her? What happens to her now?" "She'll be taken to a safe facility. Medical evaluation, trauma counseling, and then we'll work on identifying her and finding her family, if they're still alive." Torres's voice softened slightly. "You saved her life. If those men had gotten here first." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "Why did they come so fast?" Riley asked. "We only had the trailer for a few hours. How did they even know we found her?" Torres looked back toward the airstream, then at the 4 men being loaded into vehicles. "My guess? The trailer was never supposed to leave that salvage yard. Harlow was probably paid to hold it there. When you took it, someone panicked. They tracked you here." She paused. "You're lucky we were already in the area. We've had Harlow under surveillance for 2 weeks. We suspected he was part of the network, but we didn't have enough evidence to move on him. When we saw you leave with the trailer, we followed. Just in case." Sienna's mind raced. So Harlow knew. He knew what was inside. Most likely. Or at least he knew enough not to ask questions. Torres gestured toward the door. "We'll need formal statements from both of you. It's going to be a long night." The interrogation, 2:30 to 5 o'clock. 2 hours later, Sienna and Riley sat in a mobile command unit parked beside the cabin, essentially a large RV outfitted with computers, radios, and surveillance equipment. Agent Torres sat across from them with a notepad and a recorder. She walked them through everything. When they'd arrived at the salvage yard. What Harlow had said. The condition of the trailer. The moment they discovered the loose floorboard. The sound of the girl crying. The contents of the backpack. "Did Harlow seem nervous when you bought the trailer?" Torres asked. Sienna thought back. "No. If anything, he seemed eager to get rid of it. like it was just junk taking up space. That's because it was supposed to stay junk, Torres said. Hidden in plain sight. These trafficking operations rely on apathy. Nobody looks twice at an old trailer rotting in a salvage yard. But the moment you started asking questions, the moment you drove off with it, you became a problem. A problem they wanted to eliminate, Riley said quietly. Torres nodded. The men we arrested tonight are enforcers. Cleanup crew. Their job is to tie up loose ends. If we hadn't been here. She let the implication hang. Sienna felt a chill run down her spine. What happens now? Now, we move fast. The backpack you found contains addresses, routes, contact numbers. We've already begun coordinating with field offices in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. By morning, we'll have simultaneous raids on at least a dozen locations tied to Lava Bora. If we're lucky, we'll shut down the entire western corridor of their operation. And the girl? Sienna asked. Torres's expression softened. She's being transported to a secure medical facility in Los Angeles. Pediatric trauma specialists. The best care available. Once she's stabilized, we'll try to identify her. The logs in the backpack might help, dates, locations, names. We'll cross-reference everything. Can we see her again? Riley asked. Before she goes? Torres hesitated, then nodded. Come with me. The goodbye, 5 to 7 o'clock. Outside, parked near the cabin, was an unmarked van. Inside, sitting on a stretcher wrapped in a clean blanket, was the girl. A female medic sat beside her, speaking softly in Spanish. The girl's face was cleaner now, her hair brushed back. She looked impossibly small. When she saw Sienna and Riley, her eyes widened. For the first time, she reached out her hand. Sienna climbed into the van and took the girl's hand gently. Hey, sweetheart. The girl's grip tightened. Her lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then, barely a whisper, gracias. Sienna's eyes filled with tears. You're going to be okay. I promise. These people are going to take care of you. The girl nodded slowly, then looked at Riley. Riley climbed in beside Sienna and placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. You're so brave, Riley said, her voice breaking. So brave. The medic spoke gently. We need to go. She needs rest. Sienna squeezed the girl's hand one last time, then reluctantly let go. As they climbed out of the van, the doors closed, and the vehicle pulled away into the night, red taillights disappearing into the darkness. Riley wiped her eyes. Do you think she'll be okay? I don't know, Sienna said quietly. But she's alive. That's something. The revelation, 7 to 10 o'clock. Back inside the command unit, Torres was on the phone, speaking rapidly in Spanish. When she hung up, she looked at Sienna and Riley with a grim expression. We just got word from our team at the salvage yard. Harlow's gone. Fled sometime in the last 2 hours. We found his office cleaned out, computer hard drive smashed, files burned. He knew we were coming. So he gets away? Sienna said, anger rising in her chest. For now. But he's on every watch list in the country. He won't get far. Torres leaned forward. What's more important is what we found in his records before he destroyed them. Financial transactions. Payments from shell companies tied to Lava Bora. Harlow wasn't just holding the trailer, he was a logistics coordinator. He moved vehicles, provided cover, falsified paperwork. He's been doing this for at least 5 years. Riley's stomach turned. 5 years. How many kids? Torres's jaw tightened. We don't know yet. But based on the logs in that backpack? Dozens. Maybe more. Sienna felt a wave of nausea. They'd stumbled into something so much bigger than they could have imagined. A single dollar. A single trailer. And beneath it, an entire network of suffering. There's something else, Torres said. She pulled out a photograph from a file folder and placed it on the table. It showed a man in his 50s, well-dressed, standing beside a black SUV. This man is Ernesto Caldera. He's the suspected head of La Vibora's Western operations. For years, we haven't been able to touch him, no evidence, no witnesses willing to testify. But the documents you found? They tie him directly to at least 6 trafficking routes. We have enough now to bring him in. When? Riley asked. Tonight. Federal marshals are already en route to his estate in Scottsdale. By dawn, he'll be in custody. Torres looked at both of them. Because of you. Sienna didn't feel victorious. She felt exhausted. Hollowed out. Torres seemed to sense it. I know this isn't how you expected your trip to start. And I know it's a lot to process. But you need to understand, what you did tonight will save lives. Not just that girl's. Dozens of others who are still out there, still trapped. You gave them a chance. Over the next 12 hours, everything moved fast. Coordinated raids hit 13 locations across 4 states. Safe houses were stormed. Vehicles were seized. Operatives were arrested. By noon the following day, the news broke. Local stations first, then national. Major human trafficking network dismantled. Footage of federal agents leading suspects out in handcuffs. Aerial shots of seized properties. Interviews with law enforcement officials praising the breakthrough. Sienna and Riley watched from the cabin, their names kept confidential for their safety. Torres had made it clear, La Vibora still had people out there. People who might want revenge. Do you think it's really over? Riley asked, curled up on the couch beside Sienna. I don't know, Sienna said. But it's something. It's more than there was yesterday. Her phone buzzed. A text from Torres, Ernesto Caldera in federal custody. 17 children recovered in the raids. Still searching for more. You did this. Sienna showed Riley the message. Riley closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. The choice, 12 to 1400 hours. 3 days later, Agent Torres returned to the cabin. She brought news. We've identified the girl, Torres said, sitting across from them at the small kitchen table. Her name is Lucia Morales. She's 8 years old. She was taken from her home in Oaxaca, Mexico, 6 months ago. Her mother thought she was dead. Sienna's breath caught. She has a mother? Yes. And we've contacted her. She's flying to Los Angeles tomorrow to be reunited with Lucia. Riley covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming. Oh my God. Torres smiled, a rare, genuine smile. It's because of you. Lucia gets to go home. Sienna felt something break open inside her chest. Relief. Grief. Hope. There's something else, Torres continued. She placed an envelope on the table. The federal government is offering you both a reward. $50,000. For your role in dismantling the network. Sienna and Riley stared at the envelope. We don't want it, Sienna said quietly. Torres raised an eyebrow. You sure? That's a lot of money. Give it to Lucia. And the other kids. For therapy. For whatever they need. Sienna looked at Riley, who nodded. We don't need a reward for doing the right thing. Torres studied them for a long moment, then nodded. All right. I'll make sure it goes to a victim support fund. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. You know, most people would have driven past that salvage yard. Most people would have ignored the crying. Most people would have run when those men showed up. But you didn't. You stayed. You fought. You saved a life. She met their eyes. That's rare. Don't forget that. And then she was gone. The resolution, 14 to 1600 hours. 2 weeks later, Sienna and Riley stood in the driveway of the cabin, looking at the Airstream. It sat exactly where they'd parked it that first night, Now cleaned, polished, the floorboards replaced. What do we do with it? Riley asked. Sienna was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, we use it. We take the trip. We don't let what happened steal that from us. Riley looked at her. You sure? Yeah. Lucia got her life back. We should live ours. They spent the next month restoring the Airstream completely. New floors. New upholstery. Fresh paint. They erased every trace of its dark past and turned it into something beautiful. And when they finally hitched it to the truck and drove east toward the horizon, it felt like a beginning. Not the beginning they'd planned, but a beginning nonetheless. Epilogue, 16 to 1800 hours. 6 months later, Sienna received a letter. It was forwarded through Agent Torres, the return address redacted for safety. Inside was a drawing. Crayon on paper. A little girl with dark hair standing beside 2 women in front of a silver trailer. The sun was shining. Everyone was smiling. At the bottom, in careful, shaky handwriting, were 3 words. Gracias por todo. Thank you for everything. Sienna pinned the drawing to the wall of the Airstream, right above the small fold-down table. And every time she looked at it, she remembered that sometimes, the most important things in life cost only $1. And that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing the right thing even when you're terrified. Lucia was home. Lava Bora was broken. And Sienna and Riley were free to keep moving forward, carrying hope with them wherever they went. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, full of stories waiting to be told. And they were ready.